Artivists, the series of Art Lab podcasts programmed by UNESCO's Social and Human Sciences sector. The program that hosts artists committed to the promotion of human rights.
Today we have the pleasure to have here with us Dr. Guila Kessous. Welcome, Dr. Kessous.
Hi.
Good morning. Could you introduce yourself in a few words first, please?
Yes, my name is Guila Kessous and I'm a UNESCO Artist For Peace, and I'm using theater art in order to help people to express themselves, especially when they are victims of post-traumatic syndromes. And I'm also an executive coach, helping executives, managers to get a better posture with theater art. I had the chance to have my PhD under Nobel Peace Prize Elie Wiesel, who really gave me this broad approach of theater by showing how theater could be used for Shoah survivors.
Well, may I call you Guila?
Yeah, please,
Okay.
please, of
Okay.
course.
So, actually here in Art Lab, we work with the concept, it's called the Artivism, the artivists, which are the people that collaborate with us in the programs that we have, the pilots. And I wanted to ask you, what do you consider to be an artivist, and how do you think that the arts can be used to enhance the promotion of human dignity?
So artivism is for me the combination, exactly what you were saying, of the art and the activism. An artivist is really someone who understands that art has a specific impact on society in terms of inclusion and in terms of healing. So I would say that for me, artivism is really a way to get back the nobility of what is the purpose of an artist today in our society, because it's not only a big responsibility to be an artist, but it's also, I would say, a way for governments to realize that artists should not be the least in the chain of game changers. On the contrary, being an artist is a way to really have a social impact that could be sometimes even more impactful than something that would be viewed as an economic campaign or something like this.
Yeah, I totally agree, actually. And it's really interesting because we have heard that you have done some work with women in marginalized situations in Bangladesh. Could you tell us a little bit more about this and how actually they came from what you call the state of fear to the state of care?
Yeah, so I've been working at Cox's Bazar and the refugee camps for Rohingya. And it is true that working with them using art, and especially theater art, you see that in terms of percentage of self-confidence and also daring to take upon their shoulder responsibilities of leadership, it was a big change, and the question of after 6 months of them working together with theater games, we saw that they really want to be more involved in societal responsibilities. Mm-hmm. So what is interesting is to see that art here has an impact because of rehearsing reality. Especially for women, there is fear of not being taken seriously by men and to think always about the imposter syndromes. Yes. So as a theater expert, I'm working on this by helping them to do role games and trying to imagine themselves in the situation. And when suddenly it's not working, we can go back. That's what is wonderful also with theater, is that you can choose to leave the situation, and when the situation is not happening the way you want, we stop and we go back. And that's what I really like, this power of return that theater can bring.
Okay, it's really interesting. Actually, we saw that you have also developed some work in Congo, but regarding sexual violence, was it? Can you describe a little bit more so we can understand? Because is there a relation between both works?
Definitely. So this work in Congo has been done together with Dr. Mukwege, who is the Nobel Peace Prize that we all know and who is doing a wonderful work at the Panzi Hospital in order to rehabilitate those women victims of violences. And what I really want to state here is the power of art, not only from an individual point of view, an individual discipline, but also as a group, a collective intelligence way to function. Working with women who have been victims of violence here, we are not helping them only to do the catharsis of what they lived, but also we are trying to create a union. I would like to I would like to quote this wonderful woman who is the head of women who have been survivors. They like to use the word survivors and not victims of sexual violence, Tatiana Mukanire-Bandalire, who really invented this great exercise, that is a theater exercise, of writing a letter to the person who raped them. And they write a letter that is a fictive and imaginary letter addressing to this person, telling them that they have conscious that they are human beings, that they have this anger against them, but that even if they forgive, this will be really anchored in their body till the end of their life. Mm-hmm. And by doing this, there is something that happened that help them to survive, really. There is a way to inscribe, I would say, the trauma inside of their body, inside of the brain, just to be sure that this happened. And then there is a way to just follow, to go through, in order to accept also to live an identity that now is more resilient.
And what were the impacts of this work on these women? Like, what were the outcomes after this? It is really intense, what you were saying, and about the letter. But I think it's really interesting if you can share with us some ideas on what happened after. How did they feel regarding this work?
So for some, it was only performed. So for some, they didn't want to keep the letter. For others, and I'm thinking about Tatiana, for example, she made a book out of it in order to just transmit and help others to rebuild themselves. Yes. The effect was amazing in terms of self-appreciation, self-confidence, and acceptation of reintegration. So as I said, art is always a question of the self and the integration of the self in the collective. And we saw that 99% of women who followed an art workshop, and especially theater, were saying that they were feeling more self-confident and accepting to be reintegrated in a society.
It's really amazing. It's really amazing. And this is what we believe here in Art Lab. This is why you're here, actually, because we really are like on the same page. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It is really interesting, and I wanted to ask you, actually, like, since we're doing this Art Lab podcast, which is focused on bringing strategies and also stories of people that have been working directly in the field with communities, what do you think is the power of broadcasting these kinds of testimonies for art? And what do you think is the power within, like, with the audience in general? What do you think that it can touch people where?
I think there is a huge work to still do in terms of education. People don't know about artivism. People don't know about art therapy. People don't know about what is the power of art. Usually, when you have a kid who is not good at school, psychotherapists will say, oh, let him do some art. It's going to calm him. It's going to help him to focus. But we think that it's just a remedy, in order to have the kid being by himself doing some drawing. It's more powerful than that. So that's why, in terms of, the World Health Organization is taking it very seriously. Recently we have someone who is in charge of representing art in the World Health Organization. So I think by broadcasting, doing podcasts, we are trying to just spread out the word that art is here to help. Art is not here to replace medicine, because of course you have the other extreme where people say, okay, well, only with artists will not become the new doctors. This is not what we are implying. But art can help curing, art can help with integrating people. Art can be also very powerful, again, self and collective. What I'm calling is this mass constructive weapon. This is how I like it to say, because I do think that we really underestimate this beautiful way to even resolve conflict. And so that's really what I think, and I thank you so very much for doing this type of podcast and broadcast, for just to transmit. For artists, it's important that they feel that they have a real role to play in the society, and for people who think that they would not be artists enough, but who are suffering, it's time for them to simply say, okay, art can be your best ally to feel better, to simply feel better.
And you started your answer actually talking about education. And that's the point that I wanted to talk about. We saw that you have been doing some work with Harvard University regarding empowering individuals for advocating for human rights. What exactly have you been doing there, and can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I created at Harvard University a class called Theater and Human Rights. And so the goal was to have students discovering from a historical point of view, so that was purely education, from a historical point of view, how theater helped to unlock some frontiers in terms of first woman on stage, first slave on stage. So slowly how theater art helped to deconstruct our stereotypes. So that was the first, because it was a 2-hour class. So that was the first hour. And the second hour were more about how theater art can heal, can help in the healing process. So we were discovering Augusto Boal, we were discovering the playback theater, we were discovering all type of methods, and they were blown away because usually this is not something that is taken seriously. And my real pride was that I began at the Faculty of Arts and Sciences at Harvard University. They were saying, okay, that's going to be a little bit of, fun for the students when they want entertainment. And when the Harvard direction saw that some students came with me on the ground, on the countries, but simply by passion, they put me into the Kennedy School. So that was really the political science
which is huge,
aside. And that was a real pride for me because I think this is where art should be today as a way to be a conscious revelator of the political science impact.
It's interesting that you mentioned Augusto Boal because it's really like one of the most incredible Brazilians that we have. And really the theater of the oppressed here is one of our references for our work in Art Lab. But now I want to talk about your forum, actually, the Arts and Human Dignity Forum. What is the main idea of the forum? What was the main role of it? And how do you think it has been working throughout the editions?
So it went very well. My goal was really to show that the World Art Day was not only a day to celebrate art in itself, but art towards society, art toward a role regarding individuals. So that's why we imagined to have art and human dignity being linked together. And we had the chance to work together with people representative of the World Health Organization in order to really recognize the therapeutical role of arts. And we had some professors from all around the world. We had some activists from all over the world who came to really explain what was the role of art from a social point of view and the role of art from a medical point of view. And when you see this, it's really as if you had 30 people together explaining in the different part of the world how this resounds, how this has an echo. And for me, it was very positive because it was a way to unite our force again to recognize the power of art.
It's really, really interesting. It's really amazing. And now, can you tell us a little bit more about Feminina Vox? What is the work behind it?
So, coming back just to World Art Day, all the videos are online now on the website of UNESCO. So I strongly advise people who are interested to look for this power of art that some expert explains, especially philosophers or professors, doctors also. Coming back to Femina Vox. So Femina Vox is a forum I created for UNESCO International Day for Women's Rights. And I insist that it's not the International Women's Day, but Women's Rights. Here, it was the same principle of the World Art Day, having 30 experts to really express themselves on where are we at in terms of women's rights. So one of my fights, and especially through art and theater art, is trying to help women to came to express themselves better. And we see that from an executive point of view. As I said, I'm an executive coach, and you see the imposter syndrome, for example, at the highest level is still existing. And of course, when you're working with women, we mentioned Bangladesh or Congo or Chad, we really have a lot to work on. So Feminavox was simply a way to do a barometer to understand where we're at the women's rights today. We had the chance to host Dr. Mukwege, Nobel Peace Prize, but we also had the High Duchess of Luxembourg. We received Claudia Cardinali. We had interview with Ingrid Betancourt, Leila Slimani. So beautiful figure, some very famous, some others on the ground in order to understand what to do. And I'd like to also underline, and here too you will find everything on the UNESCO website by titling Feminavox, a section on feminist diplomacy that is very interesting and that I'm working on as an artist as well. Feminist diplomacy being working against violence against women, having more women in politics. And feminist diplomacy is really something very important. And me as an artist and as a coach using theater, I met a lot of women, especially ambassadors and diplomats, who were still having the syndrome of the good student, trying to apply what they have. And basically what I imagined, it was trying to unite their strength. And I imagined this feminist alliance between Bahrain, Emirates, Morocco, and Israel. And those women got together, they signed an agreement, an accord that was very close to the Abraham Accords, but the feminist version. And we got into something that was called in I-24 a historical accord regarding feminist diplomacy. So see, art could also be a way to influence governments. And I think this is very important in terms of being heard for, women, especially for women's voice.
I was going to ask you about concrete things and results, but you brought it all, so it's amazing. And that's the thing important that you said, actually, because we talked about the forum, we talked about Feminavox, and we were talking about the Kennedy School in Harvard. And it's really one of the points of Art Lab is trying to understand how to go and influence local stakeholders, governments, institutions, that art is actually a vehicle for development. It's not only entertainment, and it's also about the individual, but it's about the whole society. What do you think is the next steps that we have to get in order actually to influence these governments, that we can make a change through the arts?
Well, if we consider that art is constructive mass weapon, we need to have spokesperson, and that's why I'm very honored and privileged that you're allowing me to express myself in this podcast. I'm going to give you an example. As a UNESCO Artist For Peace, I had the chance to meet with Pope Francis, for example, to talk about the importance of art and to give him very important audiobook. As a theater performer, I'm recording a lot of books. And so I gave him an audiobook that I did regarding, the relationship between believers and especially the Jewish-Christian dialogue. I had the chance to recently meet His Holiness Dalai Lama, and I gave him also this audiobook about new way to have a collective responsibility. And each time with these high dignitaries, we are talking about the importance of art, and they all say that art is really something that could save the world. I think spokesperson should unite, and that's why I like the Art Lab, should have a place to simply unite their strength and have a one voice message. Yes. I think this is a first point. Second point is, I think, to influence in the government, we need to have what Dr. Mukwege is saying, the positive masculinity. Because what we see is that women, and it's not a stereotype, each time that I have a coachee who would be a woman, women are more sensitive to art than men. Because men, when you offer them to talk about art, or they immediately look at you and be like, well, I have something else to do, really, than thinking about something that would be a distractive way. Whereas, in fact, it's not a distractive, it's on the contrary, a way to construct something. So Dr. Mukwege invented this expression, positive masculinity. And I think we need to also have a dialogue with people at the head of governments, men especially at the head of the governments, to make them understand not only, about the importance of feminist diplomacy, but of the importance of art. And this has to come also from not only, I would say, the ground, because right now the artivists have a very difficult position. They are trying to swim, and they know that what they're doing is very, very impactful, but they feel alone, beside, I would say, you as an art lab, holder. There's not many ways to really develop, the power of art. I'm thinking about NYU, that has a beautiful way. I'm thinking about England also has a beautiful way to think about art therapy, but it's not systematically an area of research. So I think this should come from governments where we really think about art being let's try to find really important arguments. The cheapest way to also decrease mental health level when it comes to disease. So you're doing a wonderful economy when it comes to expenses. So I think that by trying to speak the language, of the executive people from private and public sectors, if you're showing concretely all the money that could be saved by using art better than using systematically medication, and again, I'm not talking about for pathology, but if you're coming with very concrete argument, people will not be able to just tell you no. So if you're asking me about an influence in order to spread the word, and especially when it comes to society and governments, I would say those three things. So yes, the importance of positive masculinity, the importance of finding the spokesperson, and the importance also to know how to use specific language, I would say almost political language, in order for people to fully understand the power of art today.
Because it's what we say here in Art Lab, it's not everyone that understands what is the power of arts. And it's not every artist that understands what is artivism. And in this sense, I want to ask you a last question because we have to finish, unfortunately. What do you think is the future of artivism, and what do you want to be the future of artivism? What do you want for the future of artivism?
So I think artivism has a beautiful, beautiful future. More and more, we see people being so amazed about what art can do for them that I would say individually, when people learn about that, they are certain of the good impact that it has. So I would say I'm not doubting about the personal impact of art. Now today, what I would love to is that this become more massive, this become more, I would say, conducted by fully national programs, international programs. Again, the fact that the World Health Organization has someone named for the art is very positive, but I'd like to go a little bit further. I imagine to have UN, World Day showing, expressively the result of art, and by this just imposing art programs in order to address different conflicts also. So I would say my wish would be that art change their reputation, and especially when it comes to what we are calling the modern arts, thinking that art is not only a way, you hear that very often, to have an NFT and get a lot of money. This is not what we're looking for. We really try to have a better reputation of arts that is inscribed into a social use, a public use, a collective use. So this is my wish, really trying to have media talking more about the social and the therapeutical approach of art more than the NFT or any type of way to get money out of art.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kessous. It was a great pleasure, a great honor to have you here with us. I am Pedro Ferreira. This is the Art Lab podcast. Thank you to the entire team, Emmanuel Hodevsky for the directing, Amina Amshari for the conception, and the entire team at Art Lab for Human Rights and Dialogue in the Inclusion, Rights and Dialogue section of UNESCO's Social and Human Sciences sector.